Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics pre-season live show. The Amy Community Series is done and dusted, and we've got plenty of relevant info and things to be talking about. And as our attention now goes towards opening round, it's exciting times as a fantasy coach. I'm your host, Bales, and you can find me at BAILSDT across the socials. For those listening back on the pod, it is Sunday, the 2nd of March. And if you don't have anything on a Sunday night and you want to come in and tune in live, make sure you do that. We're live on YouTube every Sunday night of every round during the home and away season, obviously in opening round as well. And if you are tuning in live and would like a question answered or player that you'd like discussed, put it in the live chat and we'll get to those throughout the show and at the very end. But joining me, as always, is my fellow co-host and AFL Fantasy Fanatic is Tim Guest. Guesty, mate, how are you?
Good, mate. Good. Feeling a bit more settled after last week now that we watched some pracky games. Feel a little bit more certain about some roles and players. So, we're coming down to the final straight. But as I was kind of mentioning off air, like we've still got opening round and then, of course, teams for round one to mess with our teams from here. So, look, getting into the pointy end of the season.
Exactly. And we know how many... Exactly. And we know how much our teams did change a little bit last year from opening round. So it'll be interesting to see how much that they change post this opening round. We got two very special guests jumping on. So firstly, I'll jump over to the man that you'll know very well from Hatchat, coach of the Over Mullets. It is Nathan. Nathan, mate, how are you? Good to have you back on, mate. It's been a little bit since we last had you. How are you?
Yeah, it's good to be on. I'm just not used to being thrown to first. Normally I'm left till last, so it's fantastic. I'm feeling great.
Oh, mate, no, it's always good to get Nathan pumped up straight away and looking towards all these games. And making his
the best coach from Hatchat on the pod, mate. It's good to have the best coach from Hatchat on the pod.
Honestly, it took a while for me to get on, but I thought we were just saving things. You know, you're warming people up with the other three, and now it's the time people actually care about the season. Everyone's team's finally taking shape, and now this is the time to get me on. I agree.
Beautiful, mate. And making his AFL Fantasy Fanatics debut, you would have heard him on the Keeper League a number of times and also on the official Supercoach podcast. He's done plenty of really, really good work, including keeping some stats for us when we didn't have the stats, and we're very appreciative of that. It is Jordan D'Sena. Jordy, mate, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for, good to be on as a debut. And, have been on the Supercoach pod. And, I do love playing Supercoach as well, so as well as fantasy. So, I think last week, as you said, I was taking stats and trying to put some graphics out for, the community. So that was a bit of fun.
I did it last year when I was over in Perth. And I don't know about you, and I want to see how you felt taking the stats, but it can get very tedious and frustrating having to rewind back 15 seconds. Now, was that a tackle? Was that a disposal and whatever? So was that how you felt, or was it just me?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's exactly right. I had it on my computer going back 15 seconds because I wanted to tweet them out sort of in real time. I think the tackles are the hardest because, I think I was pretty strict on those. But, you can see champion data. Like sometimes they do get that +4, sometimes they don't. So, if I was unsure, I just wouldn't give it. So obviously that's probably, you saw some other people taking numbers and, things were similar, but it's good to have those actual official stats out this week. Definitely tedious, as you said, Wales.
Yes, exactly. We've got a super chat very early in the show, so thanks very much for that, Tim. He just says, will everyone be doing a team review on Patreon this week? Well, obviously, that's a good segue sort of there. If you want to head to our Patreon and become a Patreon member, head over to patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. Every Patreon will get a team review by me before the start of the season, but I'll also be doing a team review potentially tomorrow on YouTube and then on Patreon as well. So, make sure you tune into that. And Patreon will be the only place I'll reveal my team post opening round. The last one for free, for the public will be tomorrow. But thanks, Tim, for the super chat, mate. Very much appreciate it. Normally, I'm so used to now throwing to +3s and -3s and how we all went. We haven't even started the season yet, but we've got 9 games to get through. So before we start off with that, though, we'll go to Tim to sort of make the. He's plugged that last few times, but for anyone that's missed it, Tim, we've got something exciting for the listeners potentially to get involved in.
Yeah, the competition for basically an AFL fantasy coach out there to be the 20th coach in the Content Creators Cup this year. proudly sponsored by Infinite Wealth. Make smarter financial decisions. Yeah. So look, basically we put out a brand new online program helping people really take control of their finances and master their money. So for anyone who registers for that program by March 10th, which is basically, not this Monday, next Monday, you'll get a chance to go in the draw and be that 20th coach and go up against, coaches like the best coach from Hatchat, Nathan, or the best coach from last year from the AFL Fantasy Fanatics, which is Bales. Or we got a bunch of other really good podcasts, which we'll be announcing over this coming week as well as part of the Cup. So, yeah, get along to infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy.
Yeah, make sure you get around it. As I said, when the more people to knock the ball boys off their perch, the better. So let's get around it and let's try and knock them off. Let's get stuck into the 9 games. So we're going to go all the way back to Tuesday night and look at the Geelong and Essendon game there. So we'll start off with Geelong. Lawson Humphries was pretty quiet. That was one guy. So if you had him on your list, obviously you can watch him this week, see how he goes. But the one I wanted to talk about, though, Nathan, I'll go to you first, was Mitch Nevitt. So 74 points. Obviously, a few mid-rookies have obviously gone down with a Sam Lawler and Jagger Smith. And obviously, Lawler, we're not going to sure if he's going to play next week. But is Mitch Nevitt someone that might be in the mix for you with, obviously, a couple of others we'll talk about later on. But what are your thoughts with Mitch Nevitt potentially starting with him?
I really don't mind it. Particularly, we're not seeing necessarily the great rookie scores that we'd be expecting from midfielders that we've been privileged to have over the last few years. Obviously, Finn O'Sullivan, if he plays across halfback, we can probably expect to be getting those 70, 80s. But I'm taking a look at some of the other mid-rookies, and it's not many that I'm comfortable having, say, at an M7, M8. So in this situation, someone like a Mitch Nevitt, I think is not that much more expensive than some of the others. And I think the points gain you get from him, and especially the cash gain you'd get from him, might be significantly better than, say, an extra 100K going, say, a Tom Powell up to someone else at M1.
Yeah, he's someone definitely in the mix, and there's obviously a couple of other names, and I'm sure we'll get a question ranking them, but if not, we'll rank them towards the end with him and the 2 others. But he's definitely someone, and if he goes well this week, someone we could potentially look at. Sam de Koning, Geordie. I don't know about you. I wasn't overly impressed with him. Just scored the 54 points. We get to watch him in opening round as well. Obviously, who knows what's happening Thursday night with, apparently there's the Cyclone Alfred or something going over Brisbane, and who knows if that game it's going to be moved or going ahead or what's going on. But, yeah, what did you think of his game against Draper and Nick Bryan there? Because, yeah, I don't know if it would have filled us with too much confidence.
Yeah, that's my concern, I think. And I think the week before, I know it wasn't official stats, but I think he pumped out a 27. So, and then he's got the 50. So I am really keen to see him in opening round because he did have the role. So he did have that high CBA. So, usually that shows that you can score there. But yeah, 54 points. At the moment, I actually found a bit of extra cash and I've put him up to Freya there at the D5 spot. So, but he's one that I'm not completely crossing off. I think, yeah, it's great that we get to see the opening round score. I think, if he puts up an 80 opening round, I think it's going to be hard for us to not have him in our side. So I think I'm just going to keep it at that to see that. But he does have the role, so he still has my interest there. That's my take.
Yeah, I noticed with de Koning, he sort of he didn't be in the ruck and then almost just sort of float forward. He wasn't almost doing what a traditional ruckman would do, being down line. It's sort of like he was almost roaming around Geelong. Love throwing the magnets around. So, yeah, definitely a really good one to be watching this week. But, yeah, not a huge score there. And then, obviously, Connor O'Sullivan didn't score too great. But, again, we get to watch him as a rookie. So, but I don't know if he's going to be best 22. And if he is, I don't know if he's going to be a big scorer. And Bailey Smith didn't obviously play. But Brad Scott did say pre-game that he will be ready to go. He could have played on Tuesday night, but he'll be ready to go for the next game. Essendon, a lot of big scorers here.
Move on. Can I just? There's a couple of things I just want to throw in there, just as kind of counterpoints, and look, just playing devil's advocate for both of those players. So, look, I'm just a bit concerned with Mitch Nevitt. Firstly, that when Bailey Smith comes in, he goes out. So I think that's what we got to watch there. When you've got, especially like we've got a Hugo Garcia. The other thing we've got to consider is the round 3 bye as well. And then we've got a Sheldrick, although he's got a round 3 bye as well. But, with the stocks, I guess, falling in that Sydney midfield. So, look, I'm just a bit unsure about how he'll fit when Bailey Smith comes back in. And then the other flag I'm going to throw with Sam de Koning is round 0 is up against Oscar Mack, which is a pretty tough ruck matchup. So, the thing that we got to watch with Sam DeConning. I mean, I think he's like season wide. He's a good play. But if he comes out around at 0 and scores a 60 up against a tough matchup like he did up against Essendon, it's just going to absolutely kill his cash projection. So, look, I just, I think what Jordan was talking about, spending a little bit of money and going up to someone like Freya or, what other options you've got there. But I just think coaches should be prepared that you're going to get probably a pretty nasty surprise after round 0. And rather than, having to kind of suddenly, try and figure out a solution, you should probably be looking for a solution now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I've heard a lot of podcasts say that, plan to make a couple of versions of your team and in case something doesn't work. And if DeConing's not the guy, then whether it's a Freya or if you go up to a Perryman at D5 and pay up. So there, a few things to watch for there. A lot of Essendon players here, though. Don't think we'll go in depth too much, except probably one or two here. But Ben Hobbs was huge with 116 points. Big asterisks on that. Jai Caldwell set out the second half. But we do know that Hobbs in the role can score well. Just to watch in opening round to see where he sits, but could be someone there that potentially looks good. Nick Martin, I think, regardless, will just look good no matter where he plays, but he's got the early bye. I think we fade him there. Nick Bryan only played 58% time on ground, scored 97 with like a 60-odd point last quarter. But I think we've got a few other ruck options to be looking at there. Dylan Shield, though, Tim, looked pretty good. Off half back, and every time we obviously chat a bit about this on the Hatchat pod and said every time we looked up, we saw him in the screen. Is he someone that you're going to be keeping a pretty close eye on in this opening round game to see if you can maybe fit him in your team?
Look, I'm kind of staying away from him at this point in time, just because I'm a bit worried about how long he's going to last in that role. I think, look, he could certainly rack up, but his disposal wasn't fantastic, and Look, I'm not the, I don't know a lot about Essendon. I don't follow him very closely, but I'm just concerned that there could be some changes within a few rounds there. And then I think the other thing that makes it hard is how you're structuring up in your midfield and how you can possibly fit him in. I think there's no way we can go past the Clayton Oliver in that kind of $700,000 to $800,000 range. Chera I was kind of staying away from, but after his kind of practice game, which we'll talk about soon, for me, I wanted to get him back in my side. So it's like, how many of those 700 to 800 guys can you have? And I guess I'm just trying to pick who's got possibly the ceiling, but also with the best job security and might stick around. And then, of course, I guess with Dylan Shield, not that Adam Chera is any better, but you've also got a bit of injury concern, to worry about there as well.
Yep. No, very good point. Elijah Sardis, 88 points, look good. Another bit watch, around to see what his role and score is. Along with an Isaac Kako and Zach Reed, I think, is locked into our benches probably. And a few people I've even seen rocking him there at D6 with the lack of options there. But they're two rookies to be watching to see what they can score. Jackson Pryor wasn't huge, played more of a lockdown role, but something, I guess, to keep an eye on in opening round. And then Sard El Hawley didn't play. He was emergency, which leads us to probably believe that he's not going to be there in round 1. So he's probably just on the outer. Moving over to Richmond and Collingwood. The second game here, Collingwood big winners in this game here. Jaiden Short, Nathan, looked like he obviously completely racked up in the first half. I think he would have been on about 70 points. Had a quiet second half, but is he, after watching that first half, is he just locked into your team now?
Yeah, I think given just how much confusion we have in our defensive line, this is the easiest pick that we can possibly make. I think he's absolutely solidified in there. Richmond looked terrible. There's going to be times where they're just trying to chip it around, similar to how North did a few years ago, just because they're getting absolutely demolished ahead of the ball. And I think he's the easiest person to be doing that. It's worth noting that Collingwood was pretty accurate there, 21 goals, 6. So there's obviously further opportunity for Short to get even more kickouts going forward. Or if it's not the one kicking it out, it'll be going probably straight to him as the key distributor at that sort of 30-meter arc. So for me, absolutely, he's probably a 90-plus season, and I think everyone should have him in their teams, and I think most good coaches will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just looking here from the 6 kick-ins, they had Tom Brown took 1, and then Jaiden Short and Vlosten took 2 each. So you'd imagine that Vlosten and Short will be the 2 main kick-in guys. So a few extra bonus points on that, and it's looking pretty good there. Jacob Blight scored 57 points. I just think he's a bit too expensive. He's like just over 400K, probably too expensive there. And Luke Trainer's someone to watch. Didn't play the first half, but looked pretty good in the second half. If he's named, and he potentially could be a defensive option with the lack of them there. Tim Taranto, Geordie, so he only scored the 64 points, but 56 of those did come in the first half, didn't play the last quarter. Did anything from this game sort of make you more keen on him, sort of less keen? So what were your thoughts with Taranto coming away from that game?
Yeah, I mean, it's good that he did score that in the first half. I've been so up in the air with Taranto. I think, I have actually pushed him out with guys like Dawson and Rosie now, pushing their case this round. So, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about those guys. But, yeah, I mean, Taranto's a real interesting one. Like, he could either get so much market share for Richmond this year and be like, 110 plus, or could he just be that 90 guy? I mean, I don't think he did himself any harm, scoring the 56 points in the first half. But yeah, at the moment, I've just gone off a couple of the other options that I've seen, a full game from like a Dawson and a Rosie, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But I think he's still a solid pick. But yeah, it didn't scream like he's just been one of those guys in that role that I've sort of been floating in and around my team, but he's currently out at the moment.
Yep. Does
that
a
tough one as well?
That's what I was just about to say. Does that tough run as well scare you a little bit off, Jordy? He's obviously got pretty tough sort of 4 or 5 games to start the season as well.
Yes, that's it. And I think, if he does pop it, like we could probably trade into him potentially. Like, yeah, it's real tough. He go 9, he could go like 110 plus. So, yeah, right now I'm just leaving him out at the moment.
Yeah. And for those people that want to reference the run as well, he's got Carlton, Port Adelaide, St Kilda, Brisbane, Freo. So obviously the St Kilda game looks all right on paper, but the other ones I'm not so sure. So yeah, someone to have a bit of a think about there as well. To Collingwood now, Nick Dacos just keeps on being Nick Dacos. Obviously, there are a few people that are going to put him in their team. I'd probably say stay strong. He's got an early bye. He's got a tag in opening round. He's got a few tags early in the season. He's a very good player. We're going to all want him at some point, but I would probably I think we've got other options that don't have an early buy that you can be plugging in there. But he was fantastic. 127 points from 3 quarters there. His brother, though, Josh Dacos, 120 points. Tim, is there any interest to potentially, depending on how he goes opening round, starting Josh Dacos in your midfield that might get defender status? Or do you think just with the round 3 buy, you'd rather wait?
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about that round 3. But look, the one thing I will say is bloody hell, didn't Collingwood look good? I mean, they were up against the Tigers, but with Josh Dacos and Dan Houston off halfback, they looked unbelievable. So yeah, look, but he's not really been in calculations for me from a fantasy point of view. There's probably some value there, but that early buy just makes it pretty hard.
Yeah. Well, what about Harry Perryman? He looked pretty good. 99 points, 10 tackles. Didn't get a huge amount of the ball, but tackling his way there. Do you think that obviously, depending on what he does this week, are you still liking the look of him with that midfield role?
Yeah, look, I think once again, I mean, he's been in my side since the start. And look, with this one, I'm just trying not to overthink it. It's a change of clubs, change of role. And with, I guess, the lack of options we've got down in defense, particularly the lack of value options, I think, most of us are kind of having to hunt for some value. And certainly, Harry Perryman and Matt Roberts, come into calculations. The thing we've got to watch is that round 3 buy. But, like I've kind of said to you, I'm willing to be a little bit more aggressive with my early buys this year. So, I mean, I've got 4 round 3 buy players, Matt Roberts, Harry Perryman. I've got an Angus Sheldrick in my side at the moment and a Bailey Smith. So, I'm going to have to kind of either trade or, bring some rookies on. But I think, Harry Perryman priced at 74. I mean, look, even if he could go 90, 15 points, I mean, you probably normally want a little bit more, but I would be happy in that defensive line with 15 points. So yeah, I think he's a definite shout. Once again, I think what we're just going to have to watch is see what happens in opening round. But I think what I'm worried more with opening round is that how he goes in opening round could cause me to get off him, despite the fact I probably shouldn't be getting off him. So I'm like trying to prepare for not getting my, I guess my strategy not too much when we get to opening round. But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, exactly. Dan Houston, as you said, mentioned obviously Dacos. Dan Houston was also fairly solid, scoring 90 points. Seems like Dacos is almost the number 1 or the 1A and Houston's the 1B, but just interesting to see how it shakes out there and potentially an upgrade target at some point. And then Reef McInnes, 51 points, forward rookie to potentially watch, but we've got a few forward rookies now, and we're about to chat about one as well in this next game. So I think he's probably down the list, but if he was to pop an 80 or a 90 in opening round, you could easily start him and make a bit of cash there. Moving to Hawthorn and the Bulldogs. Starting off with Hawthorn. So the sick dog, 108 points, was in defence a fair bit, but also floated forward. Jordy, is that something that you'd probably maybe steering away from just because of that threat with Deer and Lewis not playing? You just maybe give it a miss with that forward, Tom? Or did you think you saw enough of him in defence that you'd be happy to maybe take the punt?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because he's floated through my team. I know he does have that option of going forward, but he's still got 108 points, kick outs. He does interest me. Obviously has the bye, which is annoying, but I can see him having those ceiling games. And he in Supercoach, he's actually currently in my side at D2, but Supercoach is a bit different with the trades and keepers that you can keep. But I do have interest there with Sicily, so I'm not completely writing him off. And again, we do get to see it opening round. Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a flag, but I don't know. I just love him. I feel like he can.
He's coming to my side.
Yeah,
that game, he come into my side.
You know what? What are your thoughts on
led the kick-ins? Yeah, okay, floated forward, but I mean, once again, we're short on options in defence. I mean, he's priced at, what was it, 87, okay? But even still, I think there's value in that. And we know what the sick dog can do. He can pump out 130s.
Yeah. And the one thing, because I was looking at that first fixture against Essendon in round one and thought that's a Guelphy tag, but Guelphy's probably not going to be there. So there's no risk of that little tag there. So, yeah, something to watch. I think that opening round score could be dictating what I do with him. But, yeah, very, very interesting player, James Sicily, for sure. Will Day as well, scored 70 points. I just personally don't think he's going to do enough to be the pick, especially with the tough early run. Again, if he goes 110 plus in the opening round, then someone to watch for. But yeah, for me, I just think that there are probably other options that I'd be picking over a Will Day. But moving to the Bulldogs, Nathan, have we found our F6 in Sam Davidson, do you think? Oh, I think Nathan's frozen. Geordie, do you think we found our F6 in Sam Davidson?
Yes, I think so. I think, I've played around. I had him on the bench before, and I'm playing around with just filling him there. The problem is we've got these guys like Garcia, and I'm sort of playing around with how I can fit all these guys in because some of these forward rookies actually presented themselves well in this match. Well, yeah, we could stuff like Stone and Kako, as you said. So, sort of floating what you can do, but 102 points, why wouldn't you want to try and get that as F6? Was he playing on the wing? I didn't quite catch the full game. Was he forward or wing? Yeah. That's a good role.
Full-time wing. He looked really, really good. The ball did follow him. So obviously we do get excited when we see a rookie pump at 100. We're not expecting him to average 90 plus, but as a F6, if he can go to 60, which I think he definitely can, I think F6 is, and he's also got North Melbourne at Marvel in round one as well. So a decent matchup to start. And I feel like with the Dogs' injuries at the moment, he's probably got a bit of job security there now as well, which is a good sign. So definitely lock him in your sides. Yeah, exactly. Well, you spoke about the injuries, so I'll move obviously this up. So obviously Marcus Bontempelli went off with a complex calf injury is what they're calling it. We originally thought it was calf tightness, and then he said he was all good to Cameron Mooney on the boundary, and then all of a sudden he's out for 6 weeks. So yeah, he's out, but that does create some opportunity in the midfield there. And Riley Sanders played full-time mid, scored 84. I think we've probably got to put him in our sides based on what he did. Matt Kennedy, someone that might sort of rise in the ranks, but again, forwards, I think we've got a lot of good value options that maybe Kennedy's just behind a few of those guys there. And he did still split time between forward and midfield there. But Nathan, I'll have to go to you for this one, but because Jake will be expecting me to go to you for this one. Joel Frazier, you obviously mentioned it as a bit of a unique couple of weeks ago, and obviously with Bailey Dale, touch and go for round one, it seems like Frazier's taking that Jason Johannesson role, and he looked pretty good on, Thursday. So you looking at starting him in your side?
Yeah, it looked absolutely fantastic. And I think every single group chat I was in simultaneously was going, oh, Frazier's looking fantastic. Absolutely. Let me change my team. So I expect his ownership to absolutely skyrocket. Obviously, the Dogs decimated by injuries right now, and it'll be interesting to see. There's obviously this risk when Dale comes back. Does Dale play this full role and take it all away from Fraser? I don't think so. I think there'll still be enough of a role for Fraser to outperform his price, particularly with the issues we have in our defensive line. I don't think we can look at the risk and be just going, well, we don't have space for that. I think in our defensive lines right now, we have to start taking a bit of risks in order to make sure, given obviously we're looking at Perryman, hoping for a sort of 10 to 15 point upside. Fraser's the one that could be going 20, 30 plus above what he's priced at. And so I think he's an absolute fantastic pick right now.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. Luke Cleary's another guy that could be a sneaky guy to look at. 79 points. We do know preseason games can be very uncontested. Just someone to watch at 335k when we're looking for a potential D6 option could be someone that we do consider. And then Josh Dolan and Jordan Croft, I don't expect them to be, if they're in the team, I don't think they're going to be huge scorers. So I think they're probably passes as they're both forward rookies. We've got some other options. And final one before we go to the next game, Tim English, 99 points. Could be an option at R1. He sort of thought we'll talk about Tristan Sherry when we get to that game, but what do you think about English in this game?
Yeah, look, I think the reason why most people are kind of looking at him is from the value point of view. I mean, Cherry goes up against English in that first game. We know that he normally plays pretty well against him. Cherry's also got that really kind of high ownership. So, look, it's pretty scary to go against him up against that first round. But then I think the next 5 rounds after that, Cherry's is tough run. So, look, it's something that I'm kind of toying with. I guess we've all been kind of thinking about that ruck line and what the hell to do in that ruck line. I think the overwhelming majority are kind of going Cherry and TDK at the moment. But obviously, I think English is kind of probably that number 2 option after Cherry. So, look, I think he's got more chance of having value in him than a Cherry does. But it's like, do you want to go against the crowd, particularly in that round 1? I mean, I know looking at my team as well, there's a lot of mid prices. I'm going for a lot of value there. So I am lacking those kind of captain options a little bit. So having Cherry kind of just does make me feel that little bit secure. But yeah, that's going to be a bit of a coin toss, I guess, which is going to be the best way to go, whether you go Cherry or English. And I guess we'll know after about round 6.
Very, very good point. We'll move over to the next game, which was Brisbane and Adelaide. And I've already booked my flights for September. No, I'm joking. Very, very good performance by the Crows, getting the close win there. We'll start off with Brisbane, though. I think Levi Ashcroft looked very, very good, and I think we'd all be shocked if he's not there in round 1. Scored 78 points. I think he's one of these rookies that we're pretty happy fielding at M8, and we get to watch him this week as well anyway, so we get a real look at what that Brisbane team looks like. Will Ashcroft, 24 touch for 66 points, copped a knock to the head, went off for a bit of treatment there. I guess he's someone that we're going to be keeping an eye on in opening round to see what he scores, but with all the round 3 bye players we've got, probably has to be a pretty good score from my side and a few out there, but a few people are keen. So, definitely one to watch. But I think a few talking points coming from the Crows, though. And it was good to see Jordan Dawson, who, Nathan, I know you've had in your team for a few weeks now, and he's been in my team, and it made me very happy, but also a little bit annoyed because his ownership went from about 5% up to just under 15% now. Everyone's jumping over to Jordan Dawson. What did you make of his game, and did he solidify himself in your team for round 1?
Look, it's honestly, I've actually taken him out of my team, to be honest. I've done a few bit of changes there because I think with the attention he's obviously always going to get attention, but it was so clear just how head and shoulders he was above the rest of anyone else on the field. So teams are surely going to be putting a little more attention into him, which we've obviously been saying for 2 to 3 years. He was dominant everywhere that you wanted him to be. He's probably 2-3 points still underpriced from what he can do. It's just whether or not he can do that 112, 115 season. Given the amount of concerns I have in the defensive and forwards with the other rookies right now, it's if I can pay up for someone at that price. Right now, Rozier is my M1, just because I needed to find cash to go elsewhere to upgrade in other lines. But if I do go for someone over $1 million, it'll 100% be Dawson.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see where the attention goes, because I'm sort of sitting here thinking maybe does it go to Isaac Rankin, who obviously didn't have a huge. He wasn't a huge in terms of influence, but he still scored 92 points with a few marks in there as well. So do you think that maybe in the tags might go to Rankin a bit more, or do you still think it could be a Jordan Dawson who gets it?
He's more obviously Rankin probably could be more of an exciting player and more damaging at times, but I just think there's the potential for Rankin now to just be pushed forward if he does get tagged. So I don't necessarily see that being as damaging to prepare for that week if you're the coach to go, yes, we're going to fully plan to tag Rankin. And then within 5 minutes, the opposing coach goes, all right, great, I'm just going to chuck him forward now. Go deal with him as one of the most damaging forwards in the competition. I feel as though if you're a coach looking to plan for the week, you're probably planning for Dawson, who's going to be looking to play that full-time mid, or at the very least starting on that wing if he's not in the CBAs and pushing deep into the centre bounces.
Yeah, good point there. Yeah, definitely something to watch. But he does have St Kilda in round one, and we do know what Port just did.
Yes, he might score 300 against St Kilda in round one, so that's enough to make me concerned.
Yeah, exactly.
Just with Dawson, he did say after the game that he might spend a bit more time forward. I'm just looking up a tweet. I'll play mid and a bit of forward this year, but to me, like last year, he did still play like 20% forward. Like you still got to, have the rest there. I did spot him there at full forward and kicked a couple of goals. So obviously that helped with his scoring, but I'm still pretty keen on that. Even with that, what he said after the game, a bit forward, like you sort of got a rest there as well. And I just think, as you were saying before, Pals, I actually think the Crows could be top 8. And I think, that's natural improvement for scoring there. Like if you're going to be a good side, you should hopefully score more. So I'm pretty keen on Dawson. Looked good. And there was, a bit of talk last year he was carrying an injury, like halfway through the season. There was a bit of talk last year. So it could be a bit of that last year as well. So I'm pretty keen on Dawson.
I honestly don't mind if he rests forward, because there were times last year where he was resting at full back. And he was playing as that fullback, obviously, when everything was flooding down there. And that was the times where he would have 10, 15-minute periods of scoring 0-6. And that's the bit that I was looking to avoid. When he's at a forward, and if Adelaide, as you're saying, Jordy, are top 8, the ball's going to be going down there, and he's still too good to be avoiding the ball down there.
Yeah, exactly. No, very, very good point. And I've said as well, I'm convinced he was injured from round 12 onwards. So, definitely something to be watching there. We mentioned Isaac Rankin was good, 92 points, and didn't have a huge game in terms of influence, but still scored 92 points. I think it's a decent F1 option with a good early run there. My other boy, Lairdy, 76 off half back. He's a lock for DPP in round 6. So something to watch to see how he's going in terms of average, and if we jump on him in round 6 there. Cumming played on a wing, unfortunately, so I think we've just got better options. But Tim, the one I want to chat about, James Peatling. He's currently now not in my team. I'm concerned because it seems that Crows are running a fairly tight midfield 5, and he seems to be the 5th option. It seems to be, it was in terms of CBAs, it was Dawson, Crouch as the top 2, then Rankin was pretty close behind, then a Saligo, and then it was Peatling as the next guy. So as an M5 in the Crows team, I don't know if he's going to go that 90 that we were sort of hopeful for. He did still get involved sort of when he was forward, but is this a bit of a concern for you?
Yeah, it is. I guess the other thing that's kind of happened as well is that we've kind of had those O'Driscolls, Sheldrick, kind of Garcias pop their heads up as well, which means, you can save a couple $100,000, right? So, look, I was surprised that, I guess, that he was as far down the rank, as far down the kind of pecking order as he was. And look, I mean, maybe you're the better one to ask, Bales, but I was surprised that Rankin had such high CBAs. And I wanted to ask you, do you think that's going to continue?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because he didn't play the last practice game, Isaac Rankin. So maybe were they just getting him a bit more in the midfield this game to get him sort of that midfield match fitness up, and maybe it changes. I don't know. I always thought Peatling was going to be at least a top 4, if not top 3 midfielder. It was going to be maybe Saligo splitting time. Saligo's looked fantastic in the preseason, so he's going to be hard to leave out. Dawson's obviously going to be in there a lot. And Crouch will start on the bench, but he'll come on and be playing in the midfield because that's where he can play. So, they have talked about they want him in the midfield 80-20. So based on what they've said and what we saw on the weekend, that's probably what they're going to do. But whether that, I think it still will change game to game. I think there might be games where he gets tagged, they play him forward. So
here's the next question that I ask you as well. Like, who would you be going out of a Jason Horne-Francis and a Isaac Rankin? Like, I mean, they're $100,000 difference there, so about 10 points between them. And now with Butters going down, I mean, Horne-Francis could potentially be a bit of a tag target. Do you see them scoring? Do you see one of them scoring more than the other? Or do you see them scoring about the same?
So tricky because the people that have even messaged me and said I've got both, I'm like, yeah, good, because both are very good. We'll talk about Horn Francis when we get to him, but for me, he's probably looked like the best in the preseason of any player, at least top three. I know Nathan's hating hearing that as well. Yes, I think the 100K you save, though, could be important. So I almost just lean for Rankin. But, yeah, and Butters being out, I think that Horn Francis will be the main tag guy. But, yeah, it's a very, very tough one. Well, Jordy, you're of the Port fan as well. Where would you go out of the two? Because I'm pretty much on the fence.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk that, Horn Francis probably needs to go at maybe 105, potentially, or maybe 100 to be a good pick. I mean, he does have the forward status, so there's probably a bit more room there. But, Rankin's is he priced at 79, so he goes at 92. It's Hornet going at 90 to say 100, like sort of what Tim's saying is about 10 points there. I just think, Port's run, like Hornet is looking amazing. Port does have a really good run at the start. And I feel with Butters out, he could pop some of those nice scores early. I think I'm going to lean towards Hornet, but obviously I am the Port man and I'm a bit biased there. But currently I've got both in my side. So maybe that's the play that you go. You just sort of start both and see what happens. But I think Hornet just looking unreal. He also had pretty high CBAs, which he hasn't really had before. I think he's hovered around that 50%. I think he was at 65% on the weekend. So there's going to be upside there for Hornet.
Yeah. I feel like if you've got Rosie in the midfield, I'd go Rankin at that point because then you've got pieces of both the Crows and Port midfield. If you don't have a Rosie, maybe you go Horn Francis, and if you've got a Dawson, maybe that changes it. But yeah, I almost feel like you maybe want a bit of the Adelaide midfield, a bit of the Port midfield. So yeah, very, very interesting and very good debate. Let us know in the comments if you're watching on the replay, and if in the live chat, let us know who you're going out of Horn Francis and Rankin because very, very interesting. And we did a head-to-head video with DT Lemon on earlier in the pre-season, so make sure you guys check that out to see us chat about them. Sid Draper came on in the second half, looked fantastic. I still just wonder if he's going to be in the best 22 round one. He could be the sub again because of his impact. Miller, Michael Annie, and Rochelle weren't playing, so that's three players to come back into that Crows team for round one. Whether Sid Draper's one of those guys that falls out, I'm not sure. But yeah, something to watch. And if he's not the sub, I think he'll be pretty decent there. And Dan Curtin, I probably wouldn't start just with that we've got other forward options. He's not going to be a huge fantasy scorer, I don't think, in this role. So I'd be looking at other options. Before we move on to the other game, obviously we mentioned it a few times, but this podcast is also sponsored by the good friends at Game Day Squad. So another fantasy sports platform, and they do have fantasy open for opening round. So make sure you guys go sign up. Use my code BAILSDT at sign up, and you get 3 free packs, $21 worth of packs straight up just for registering. So make sure you guys go and do that. And get involved if you love fantasy as much as me and as much as all of us want more formats to play. So make sure you guys have a Game Day Squad and sign up there. Moving to GWS and Carlton. So James Leake, Tim, played midfield, started the game, wasn't the fourth quarter this time like it was last time, and looked pretty good in there. So with Tom Green missing, is he someone that, we get a free look as well, but is he someone that you'd even be comfortable filling at D6 if he's in your team?
So the thing that I noticed out of this game the most was the fact that he was the highest CBA attender. So it just kind of really catches me off guard. I don't really know what to make of it. Obviously as a basement rook, I think it's pretty much you slot him into your defensive line, whether it's a D6 or D7 or D8, and we just kind of see how these things play out. I think one of the things that came out of the practice matches was that, I know I was leaning towards only maybe having 2 rookies in defence, but, with kind of Leake putting his hand up, it's interesting to see what happens with Luke Traynor at Richmond, whether he gets a game in round one. But yeah, I'm kind of back to having those 3 rookies in defence because I think we've got enough numbers, although, we'll talk about Bo Allen when we get there. He probably was pretty disappointing.
Yeah, exactly. A few other options here. So Lockie Ash, someone probably bump up in your draft boards and maybe set for it finally his breakout, but I still think the ball goes through Lockie Whitfield when it's down in defence. Finn Callan was pretty good, 96 points. That breakout could be real. That round 2 bye does make it really hard to start him. Maybe just wait for post his round 2 bye and jump on him there. And I think Connor Stomey can lock in onto our benches, 230k forward playing in defence, 51 points. Solid there. And I think, depending on what he scores this week, someone that we might be able to put in. Cody Angove, though, maybe not, just because he didn't come on until late in the game. So unsure whether he'll be in the team in opening round. But someone to watch regardless this week. Moving to Carlton, Tom DeCone.
Sorry, I feel like Angove might be the sub for the Giants. Might be one of those types.
Yeah, no, very good shout. I think that could be the case because he did come on late, so that could be what they do there. Tom DeConing did all we wanted him to. He was up against Lockie Keefe. They did rest Kieran Briggs. I think I read somewhere that he was ill or something on the day of the game or something like that, but he got rested regardless, and Tom DeConing was pretty good. So I still think that there's a chance that Pitney doesn't come in for a while if Carlton look as good as they did in this game here and they're winning games. I don't know if they're going to change it up there. So DeConing is a very good option to be starting with there. I think the name that caught us, though, Nathan, Lucas Camporelli. I don't know if he played the week before, but played this game. And if I'm not mistaken, he was one of the top scorers for Carlton with 88 points, playing on a wing. 230k midfielder with Richmond in round 1. If he's not named the sub, is he the guy that you might put there at M10 or in your utility?
Yeah, what rookie crisis? Absolutely. This sort of guy's coming out of the woodwork. It's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. I think if he's not the sub, he's probably potentially still a sub risk. Maybe that sort of gets subbed off at 3/4 time if there's no injuries. But even still, at a basement price, I think he's absolutely someone that if he doesn't and has that good 2-3 week run, I think he could quickly go up in cash. And at the very least, if he goes out when some of the other boys come back into the team, then he's probably made you the cash that you needed to do. So, yeah, I absolutely love him, and he's currently in my team at M10.
Yeah. Tim, you obviously mentioned about Adam Chera before. As I said, 80 points from 57% time on ground. At Richmond round 1, you sound pretty keen.
Yeah, look, I mean, he's a player that we've known from the past has got a ceiling on him. You know, he's really kind of struggled to keep his body together and stay on the park. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of getting a little bit of like Dane Zorko vibes from last year. And I don't mean obviously the half-back role, but I mean, you know, a player that maybe has had a lot of body issues and maybe you can hold it together for a year. And let's face it, we don't even really need him to hold it together for a year. Probably, you know, up until the bye or something along those lines will do us well. But he's a player that is, what is he priced at? He's like 73. Look, I mean, I think he can easily go 95, but I think he's also got that potential. He could potentially in that first half of the year maybe be a 100, 105 kind of midfielder. And that would make him a pretty smash pick. So, yeah, look, obviously I'm concerned about the injuries, but he doesn't have an early bye, and I think he's got a ceiling on him, which is what I'm looking for from my players, particularly in the early rounds.
I reckon he could go 100 plus first round.
Yeah, exactly. And we're best 18 from rounds 2 to 4 as well. You can also hide behind that, but he was very, very impressive. And I think they're not going to, I can't see them just putting Sam Walsh in there full-time mid straight back off a hamstring. He might be rolling off half forward for the first few weeks with some CBAs, but looks like with Chera having, from what we've heard, is a full pre-season. He could be someone that we really look at. Ollie Hollins was good off halfback, 81 points. I think we probably need an 85 from him, and I think he can do that with a good early run, and he'll get DPP. So I think a lot of us have probably, if you didn't have him in there and you had a Peatling, you've probably switched over. If you had both, he's probably still sitting in there, so someone to be watching there. Jack Silvani was pretty solid in defensive 50. 455k is someone in the mix if a few of these other guys we're not as comfortable with, but he could be someone that we look at starting there. And Sam Doherty didn't come on until half through to the second quarter. I think it was through management, but a few Carlton people have said that they don't know if he's going to be in the best 22. But I feel like he still will be, but I just don't know if we're going to be going there. Only 47 points as well from the 2.5 quarters. So I just think we've got better options, unfortunately, for the Doc there. Moving to Gold Coast and Sydney. So injury carnage in this one. 2 injuries very, very in the game with Mac Andrew and unfortunately Errol Goulden. Fractured ankle. He's out for a fair while. I don't know if we'll see him before Sydney's mid-season bye, but who knows? We don't really have an injury timeline on him, but hopefully speedy recovery of him, and hopefully we can get him in our teams at some point. Noah Anderson top scored for the game with 119 points. Could potentially finally take that leap to that 105, 110 average as a midfielder, being the captain as well. Just got to raise his floor when he's away from home there. John Noble, Dan Rioli, Lockie Weller, they all scored pretty well back there. Any of those guys, Geordie, that you're considering, any of the Gold Coast guys, round 2 bye, is any one of these defenders you keen on, or do you think you'd rather wait till post their round 2 bye and jump on them then?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of talk about Rioli, you only had the one kick out though. I'm just a bit scared just because of that bye, the round 2 bye. I'm leaning away from these guys, but I have seen Rioli float in people's teams. And I think there was a little bit of concern that they would have liked to see him be the main guy taking the kickouts. Is probably the only thing. Did have the one. Will Power was actually the other guy that had 5 kickouts. So, I'm just going elsewhere at the moment, but have seen him around.
Yeah, I think I agree. Bailey Humphrey, Nathan, look pretty good, and looks like he's going to be getting a little bit more midfield time. No Toot Miller in this game, so he's another midfielder, but they have said that they want to get him more on the midfield. 465k as a forward. Opening round probably determines if we start him, but is there any interest? Does the opening round score really depend? Are you wanting a bigger score, or what are you thinking with him at the moment?
I just think it's very hard to fit him into a forward line, given the majority of teams are probably starting either a Rankin or that other guy at F1. And then he'll be having sort of, a lot of people have McRae, Bailey Smith, or Caleb Daniel. How does he really fit in there? So if you wanted a cheap F6 and Davison, or most people's F6, I would say is probably a Garcia, I don't really see how he fits into that world, but a massive opening round score that would kickstart some cash gen. I think a lot of teams would be looking at it. He's not one that I'm interested in, though. Yeah,
I guess the way you fit him in is just got to put one of those mid forwards in your midfield. I guess that's probably the way. Like maybe a Garcia goes at M6, M7 for you, but
that's the thing.
As you said,
he's then competing against a Nevitt or an O'Driscoll probably. So do you see them scoring more? Don't take into consideration he's a forward then if you're playing one in the midfield.
Exactly right. Yeah. And I think that opening round score is a big thing there as well. And then anyone that was considering Ben Jepson as well didn't come on until in the second quarter and scored 29 points. 230k defender rookie. We get to see if he's in the team this week, but I'm not sure he'll be there, unfortunately, for us in round 1. Moving to Sydney, as we said, unfortunately, with Errol Gould going down. But maybe opens the door, Tim, for someone you said's in your team and an Angus Sheldrick, and maybe they push someone to a wing to fill that void. And we know Sheldrick can score when he's got the role. Injuries killed him last year. You're pretty keen on him at 448k. Obviously, we get to see him this week.
Yeah, look, I mean, we've kind of talked about Hugo Garcia. We've talked about O'Driscoll. We've talked about Mitch Nevitt, right? So we've got kind of 4 players in that kind of around about that $450,000 mark. But, with Callum Mills going down, with now Errol Goulden going down, I see him kind of really getting his shot in that midfield mix in Sydney. And we've seen from the past that he can score. So, I'm kind of leaning to him over like a Hugo Garcia. And as we talked about before, Mitch Nevitt. I was actually pretty surprised. I was kind of moving away from O'Driscoll. I was just concerned about how he was going to fit into the team there on that wing. But he scored pretty well in the 2 games. So he's kind of bashing down the door as well. It's going to be interesting to see how we structure up with all those $400,000 players.
Exactly. I think Sheldrick's almost what going to be in the Matt Crouch role, but at Sydney, he's going to be the 4th mid, start on the bench, come on and go straight. And obviously, we know the starting midfield for Sydney is going to be Heaney, Warner, and Rowbottom. But I think that he's probably number 4 because he's looking good in the midfield. So someone to definitely watch, opening round, and we get that look and potential, hopefully, big score in opening round. Corey Warner's another rookie to be watching as well. 67 points, potentially could be in best 22 as well. 257k, someone to be keeping an eye on there. Ben Patton scored 55 points, 458k defender forward. So again, someone else to watch, and he seems like he's fitting in quite well back there in the back 6. Riley Bice was good, 59 points. I don't know if he's going to be there. I think he's still behind a few guys there at Sydney as well. But someone to be keeping on the radar is maybe an downgrade target throughout the season as well. Moving to St Kilda and Port Adelaide. So I'm not going to spend too long on Jack McRae, who's fantastic, 107 points. Lock him in, simple as that. he's going to be fantastic. Jack Steele, bit quieter today. Only scored, sorry, not today. I'll write that on the sheet. Quieter on in the game, 81 points. I wouldn't be reading too much into the score personally. With your premiums, if you're confident in a Jack Steele and you pick him, I'd be still confident picking him, even though he had a lower score there. Gio Garcia, Nathan, is a bit lower, 67 points. Still the clear number 3 mid, though, which I guess was what we were watching. Didn't get a huge amount of it in the first half, but then started getting a little bit more involved in the second half. Are you still fairly comfortable with him there as like an F5 or even an F6 if you're pushing a rookie to the bench?
Absolutely. I don't mean to pick up Port Adelaide here because obviously I have to hate them, but Port Adelaide, one of the toughest teams to score against, and I think at some point there was something ridiculous like the top 15 out of the 16 highest scorers were from Port at the time. So it was a terrible game for St Kilda, and the fact that Garcia still, would have outscored his price by 26 points, I think is a massive tick for him. Even in that role, top 3 with CBAs, I think he's an absolute, not a no-brainer, because I definitely think there's a world where there's potentially better picks than him that'll outscore their price by more. But for me, he's absolutely either F5 or F6 going into the season. Yeah,
and the thing people got to remember, as you said, though, look at the scores here. Jack McRae and Jack Steele were the only 2 players that scored over 80 for St Kilda. Third best was Darcy Wilson at 71. Then Hugo Garcia was next at 67. So I think the role was there. I just think, I think he's a very, very good pick in our forward lines. I agree.
Definitely a combination of Port Adelaide being fantastic and St Kilda looking awful. And St Kilda did look completely awful, but you have to have some level of confidence that they'll score and be slightly better.
Yeah, agreed. Especially when they're back at places like Marvel as well. Hugh Boxall was very good, and I think he's playing round 1, 66 points. Didn't have as much midfield time in this game, but I think with the way the game was going, I think they're trying a few things. I think he'll still get midfield time, 230k. Be interesting to see who we go with out of Boxall and Camporelli. They're going to be 230k rookies that potentially we might even be able to fit both in our side. Who knows? Nasai Wanganeen-Millero struggled to get going in this game, 59 points. He was throwing on the ball and forward, I saw at times as well. Again, I as you said, Nathan, with the lack of scoring for St Kilda, if you're confident in Nasai Wanganeen-Millero like I am, I don't think you're reading too much into this game. If not, it could even be a good thing for owners that people jump off with a bad score and he might still go well. So I'm probably not worried too much there. Angus Hastie's another one as well, 56 points. St Kilda just seem to be having all these 230k rookies that we potentially could be looking at. Hastie's another one. Harry Boyd's 230k is a ruck. I think we all are going to pick him if he's named round 1 as R3. Liam O'Connell, Geordie, looked okay down back. Not going to be a huge score, but 230k defender when the defender rookies aren't looking great. Is he someone that you might be considering back there?
I'm not considering him at the moment, but yeah, I think, was it Owens that's got injured now, and there's another injury, I think, having at Saints. So he actually might be getting a bit of time. I did see him on the wing as well, so that's probably a good thing. I think I'm still going to lean towards Leak maybe, but, that's going to depend on his opening round score. So, on the watch list, but not currently in my team.
Yeah. No, I agree.
One to look at.
Yeah, exactly. Max Hall, bit quiet in this game, just the 35 points. I do like the mid-forward flexibility, though, so if he's named round 1, could be a potential option still. And Toby Travalia, I don't know. I don't think he's going to be best 22 round 1. I think he could be the sub. He's come on late in games. But then again, with another couple of injuries, who knows? Maybe he's named round 1. But yeah, at this stage, don't know if I'll be planning for him to be there. Moving to Port, though, Connor Rosé, Tim. Wow, he's fantastic. I took him out for probably a day, and it happened to be the night before this game, and I put him straight back in after watching this. The one thing that I noticed, and obviously I was messaging Taser about this as well, and it seemed that with Houston gone, obviously all these +6s, we think they're going to go to Farrell and guys like that, but it seemed like Rosé was the guy that was pushing deeper into defensive 50 to get some of these +6s. So with that good early run, Butters out, Horn Front's like to get the tags. Is Rosé a lock for you?
Oh, I think absolutely. It's all kind of come together for him. Firstly, he's underpriced coming into the season, then with Butters going out, then with the early run, no buy. Look, I do think, obviously, the scoring you just got to take with a grain of salt just because playing against St Kilda and they look like poo, absolute poo out there. So, but yeah, look, Nathan said before, he's locked into as an M1. He's my M1 as well. I think there's good value there, and I think he can hold that space for us.
Yeah, the thing I
And
was
yeah.
actually most... Sorry, you go, Geordie.
Oh, just on Rosie, like I don't think we've ever seen him have over 80% CBAs, which is a really good sign. And like you look at the mids that are like top, number one, like over 80% CBAs, they usually score pretty well. And I think, Porter been pretty good at like spreading that midfield out with, I think if you look at his CBAs last year, it would have been about 60%. So they have 84% and be the number one main man. Like I think that's massive. That's already extra points there.
Yeah.
The other thing I really like about, I remember from 2023 as well, like the way that he finished the season there. He had 14 games in a row where he turned up, like that kind of consistency. So, there's just, I don't see any kind of downside to him this year.
Yeah. And the thing that I was actually most impressed with was the fact that he also filled all the stat lines. He got 7 marks and he got 7 tackles as well. So that was the impressive thing there as well. And even gave away 3 free kicks as well. A couple of sort of 50-50 high tackles that he gave away. So that could have been easily been a 150. So yeah, I think he's a very, very good pick. We talked about Jason Francis before, but obviously 113 points. He was fantastic. Could be a good option F1. As we said before, Logan Evans scored well. Miles Bergman scored well. I'd probably just, again, played St Kilda. Obviously, St Kilda, a great matchup. And I feel like Port will be a team that will spread the ball between an Evans and a Bergman and a Farrell and guys come back. So I'm not sure I'd start with any. Few people asked me about Finlayson. Look, very, very good and very good move for Port. I just don't know if that's going to be a consistent role for fantasy scoring. So just one to bump up in draft. I don't know if I'd be starting there in Classic. And and Josh Sim was another one that was a bit busier, but still only scored the 47th. So I wouldn't be picking him. And Geordie is the obviously Port fan. Jordan Sweet, 86 points. I believe that was from 3 and a bit quarters, maybe. Might have rested a bit in the last quarter, if I'm not mistaken. But is any interest in you? Do you think he can take that step to that 90-plus average and be that guy? Or do you think he's just going to be a mid-80s guy, good for Port, but maybe not as much for fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I noticed in this game was we actually played Soldo a little bit in the ruck. So, he was there chopping out a bit. So I just wonder what the go with our rucks is. Is that just a preseason game? If Soldo is chopping out, like that's obviously going to affect Sweet. And I think he is our number one man, but I did see him in this game chopping out. So, you want to see that. There's people in the community that are pretty hot that he can go, probably 90 plus. So, I still like him as a pick. I just think with now Pitnett going out and TDK and Cherry, I'm probably just going to stick with those guys. But there's a few people that are pretty hot on Sweet. But for me, I'm going to stick with the main guys, I think. Yeah,
I agree. Moving to the final 2 games. So we'll start off with West Coast and North Melbourne. So West Coast, Liam Baker looked good off half back. I just think that I was keen at the start of preseason wanting those kick-ins. And it's very clear to me that Jeremy McGovern is the number one and clear number one kick-in taker. And Baker didn't actually take any kick-ins. So for me, that upside isn't quite there. Me and Tim also talked about him on the head-to-head series as well. And Tim was saying he's probably capped at 90, and I'd probably tend to agree. So, and that's probably best case. So I'm fading him at the start, potentially someone we look at. But Tim, though, I'll go to you for a few of these, obviously being your West Coast Eagles. But obviously Jack Graham in the midfield as the number 2 for West Coast, scored just a 65 points. I wonder if he's got that upside there. Matt Flynn looks like the clear number 1. Well, he looks like number 1 ruck there, but you still had Bailey Williams and Archer Reed in the team. Then like a Jack Hutchinson, Liam Duggan, Archer Reed. Any of those guys that you're keen on before we talk about Bo Allen?
Look, no, not really. I mean, Jack Graham, once again, the concern is how are Eagles going to score and, how much can he score? I mean, Yowie was scoring, he was the highest scorer last year, scoring about a 90. So I'm just, even though he's high up in that rotation, I'm just not sure how he's going to score. Matty Flynn, I think the problem is where's your parachute? If it doesn't work out, I'm not convinced that he can score where he needs to score to be, a solid pick. And we probably need to look more towards that kind of set and forget option in the rucks. Look, Hutchinson, I think we fade. Duggo, we're not worried about. Archer Reed, I know there's a bit of interest there, but I think the thing that's really we got to note there is that he was primarily out because Oscar Allen, he was primarily in because Oscar Allen was out. So I'm not even sure if he's in the side come round 1. But yeah, let's talk about Bo Allen, Buzz.
Well, I think we'll mix Bo Allen in with Elijah Hewitt because Ryan Marrick didn't play. He was in the emergencies and along with Lucas Grego, so probably don't be looking at either of those 2. But Elijah Hewitt didn't play due to soreness, but he then did play in the Bs in match sim. whether that means they just want him midfield time or if he's best 22. And then obviously Bo Allen just scored the 13 points, from 73% time on ground. Is he worth the 295K, or is a Liam O'Connor, who we spoke about, James Leake, Zach Reed, Luke Traynor, if he's named, if Joe Javali obviously is there, we'll probably pick him. But is there other options you'll be looking at?
I know that you didn't really like what you saw from Jackson Pryor in the Essendon game, but I actually think he's a pretty solid option. Like he did start with a bit of a lockdown role, but I think he kind of played his way into the game, being a more mature recruit as well.
You get to look at him anyway. Round.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people might have pivoted from a Bo Allen to maybe a Jackson Pryor, although you are paying up there, and maybe there's some defender options. There's now those kind of few 230K defender options, so maybe people have kind of gone there. Look, Elijah Hewitt, I think the jury's out, right? I don't even know if he's going to get a game, let alone how he's going to score. So I think for the time being, we just have to put lines through them, and maybe if they're named, we consider them. But I think we've probably got other options to go to that have got better job security and maybe better scoring opportunities.
Because I felt the upside with Elijah Hewitt was looking like he was going to be a fair bit in the midfield. But obviously, with Yo's going to come back at some point, Tim Kelly and Harley Reid were obviously back in on the weekend, and you've still got like Jack Graham, even a Liam Duggan looks like he's pretty much a full-time midfielder at the moment. So, yeah, I think with Elijah Hewitt, we got some other forward rookies as well. If a Kako pops in opening round, we probably start him with the Cash Jan, and we talk about Sam Davidson as well, Connor Stone, like a few others as well that, I think we've probably got.
I mean, how can you put Elijah Hewitt at F6 if you've got someone like a Sam Davidson? I mean, after his performance in the practice game, I mean, I know he didn't score that well in the first practice game, but he still kind of got amongst it. I mean, I think what's going to happen. Yeah, Davidson, yeah. But I think now that, I know what I'm doing, particularly in my team at the moment, is I'm, now trying to get it kind of all to work with the players that I want. And there's certainly a couple of occasions where I'm dropping out those higher priced rookies. And look, I think the other thing we just got to watch with the rookies as well. I mean, maybe not so much an Elijah Hewitt, but with some of these other, like Sid Draper, we didn't talk. Well, we probably did talk about actually. But we got to watch this sub risk, So, we're trying to go for these rookies that are playing down back or something along those lines, which are probably less likely to, Connor Stone, Sam Davidson, are less likely to get that sub. So, I think people would have put a line through both of them.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing with Sam Davidson, obviously, I'm pretty sure, I'm actually on Geordie's account to see if he posted the stats. I don't know if he got what Sam Davidson scored the week before, Geordie, but he scored fairly, I think he scored like a 60-odd, and that was in that really like a lot of wet weather game. So I think that he can. I'd be pretty comfortable with him at F6 on field. Joy, do you have what he scored in that first Pracky game, or?
Yeah, so I didn't do that Essendon Doggies one, but I reckon I'm just thinking about what Enigma posted. I reckon it was about a 60 as well from memory. I'm just having a quick look if I can find it. But yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. So if we find it, we'll come back to it. But he was. I think Davidson's good there. Moving to North Melbourne, and we'll go to Nathan for a few of these here. Watching Tristan Cherry, like, how can you not love the man? Like I'd messaged again Taser. I was messaging Taser all weekend. Sorry, Taser, for letting you out there. But messaging him, and a ruckman should not be able to do what he does, like with the amount of tackles he gets. I think in this game it was a practice game, and he had more tackles I don't think he passed 12 in a game last year, and he had 14. So it's scary to think, can he take that tackling game to another level again? I just don't think you can start without him. I don't know what you think, Nathan, but I'm pretty keen to start him.
Look, a hot take, he's currently not in my team. I just think currently I've got English and TDK, and I think the majority of teams will start with two of those three. But it was terrifying, and I definitely looked at ways to shuffle around my team to try get him in after that. At the moment, my play is going with the other two and then hoping that Cherry has a tough start to the year and goes sub 100. But if he doesn't and he goes 110 to start the season in those first 7 rounds, then it's almost impossible to be able to get back up to him. And then when he starts playing the easier teams and he has better runs and he's able to get 10 plus tackles a week, he could be back to 130 average over that sort of 7-game period. So he's one that could absolutely take the game away from you. I think he's an absolute potential for a captain each week. He was just absolutely dominant. Again, probably noting that he wasn't exactly going up against the top ruck. scenario. So in those sort of 14 tackles around the ground, it's because he wasn't really being pushed around at all. Like he didn't really have the other ruck following him around it in that sort of a good way. So he was very much more active and first to the ball. And even he was tapping it down and getting the tap, but then his our midfielders weren't necessarily getting it. But our midfielders had an absolute demolition job in terms of the Eagles, despite the fact that we lost. Our midfield was very, very dominant. And I think a key part of that is going to be if the ball does get out a little bit quicker, will he be able to get those tackles against a slightly better ruck? Probably he's not scoring this with those sort of number of hitouts and those number of tackles, but he's shown that he could do it for like 10, 15 weeks last year. So he's obviously showing no signs of slowing down. I mean, the man's played less than 60 games. We've got to remember. He's still relatively new to the scene. So there's no reason why he couldn't go even bigger this year.
Yeah,
he's
I agree.
55% owned as well. So it's just like, do you want to go against that or do you want to go with the pack?
Yeah.
Like a worst case scenario, he probably goes 105 to like 100 to start the season. That's like a worst case scenario. And in which case, everyone's going to be trying to trade to get to him anyway and wasting a trade. So it's, can you use the cash that you get by going down to an English? Or is he probably just going to be 10 points better anyway?
Yeah. I think you just start him. I can't see. It's too. I think it's too risky for mine. He got managed in the second quarter as well. Like he only played about 60% game time, and we know that he's a mid-80s sort of % game time. He only comes off for 5 minutes a quarter, and that's it. So could have even had more in this game. And I still think that tough run to start, I don't really think that affects him as much. I think he still gets his tackles. He's grown more in confidence and gets these marks around the ground, Nathan.
I've just talked myself into him. He's back into my team. I just changed then.
Yeah, exactly.
As a North man, I feel like if he's absolutely going ham and you don't have him, it'd be a pretty hard watch.
Well, yeah. I didn't have Shizzle last year, so that was even harder. So, yeah.
Well, very good segue. Very good segue to Harry Sheasel, Nathan.
Thank you.
Look very, very good in this game. It's tough not to start him. Is there a world you can start him at D1?
Definitely because of the chaos we've had. I had Wangley and Miller there, and obviously the two had very polar opposite games in the preseason for me. And just in terms of how the teams were looking to use them, I still think Sheasel is the very, very clear option to be that North are looking for him to get those marks and going forward. He was just clearly head and shoulders above the rest of the North midfield. I don't see his role changing too much when Parker comes back. Again, I think he probably averages 105 to 110 this year. He's not going to outperform his price, but it's whether or not in that defensive line that we're so concerned about, if that's just good enough to just straight up lock in. And in the weeks where he's up against an easy opponent like a West Coast or a Richmond, you can chuck the C on him.
Yeah. Tim, I know you've been a little bit off Sheasel with the price, but after watching that game, is there any interest in paying up from at D1?
There was. I'm probably more off Sheasel than I'm off Cherry, but when I say off, I mean concerned about their ability to kind of score where they need to score in those first 6 rounds of the season. But yeah, look, the one thing that concerns me about him is he's a player that can take the game away from you. It wouldn't shock me to see him average 120 across the first 6 games or something along those lines. Now, it's one of those circumstances where my brain is telling me he's overpriced, but my balls are kind of shrinking up into my stomach, worried about how he's going to go in those first few rounds. Like he looked fantastic out there. He absolutely dominated. He's dare I say it, he's like another bloody Nick Dacos. And both of those players scare me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm just having a look here. So he played 5 games last year, and we're all concerned about when he moved into the midfield. He played 5 games last year where he had over 50% CBAs and averaged 113.2 in those games. And if he had over 60%, there was 3 games average 109.7. So and that was including an injured. I think he was injured in one of the games as well. So yeah, definitely, I'm a bit scared not starting him. So Nathan.
I think the difference there is the times where he wasn't in the CBAs, he was starting at that half-back line, whereas now I've seen him start at that half-forward line and then push in. So it'll be whether or not North is able to get the ball. If it's just he doesn't even get there to the time that North has already had 6 goals kicked on us.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was potentially considering he'd be fantastic if North do absolutely bad. They'll just chuck him in at half-back because we didn't have too many distributors. Now that Foss has gone back, I'm now concerned as well that Shiz will never be going to that half-back distributor role, no matter how bad it gets.
Yeah. I feel like all these North players we could talk about for a long time, but for the sake of time, we'll quickly go through them here. But Tom Power was fantastic. Such an awkward price, but could potentially be that guy that breaks out. Caleb Daniel, just a lock. McKercher, I think he's going to be really good for North, but probably not for fantasy as much this year. Have some good games, but it'll be up and down. But the one I'm really keen about after watching him, Finn O'Sullivan played full-time wing first half, then played full-time half back in the second half. So Nathan, is Finn O'Sullivan moved up for you there, and any other North players you want to chat about before we move on to the final game?
Yeah, don't really need to talk about this too much. He's an absolute sort of M7, M8. You need him in your team. He'll earn a boatload of cash, got fantastic job security, absolute locked into my team.
Yep, cool. Beautiful. All right, we'll move on to the final game, which was Fremantle and North Melbourne, just Melbourne here. Christian Petrarca, Geordie. I haven't really looked as much at him. He's been on my watch list because I want to see him play. But after watching him play in this game, you could have sworn he's had a full preseason. He looked fantastic, scored 120 points. And do you think he's an option to start with?
So Trax actually was in my team for most of the preseason and especially Supercoach because he scores so well there, and I've put him straight back in Supercoach. But yeah, for fantasy, he was in there. I just feel like there's so many prices and good options now in that midfield. But yeah, he looks amazing and didn't really look out of place. Had, from what I can see, played pretty much full-time mid. So, there's always been that talk about him potentially going forward or, coming back and maybe snagging forward status or something, but it didn't look like that at all. So, I think, a few chats that I've been in today have been considering him now back in there. But yeah, definitely he's in my side for Supercoach, I think, because he scores so well. But a great sign to see him back pretty much full-time mid. So one to consider, I think.
Exactly. That was the best thing, right?
CBAs, yeah.
That was just the best thing to see him back, just seeing him back playing footy and playing so well. Tim, obviously, we've both been a bit off Petrarca, just thinking he hasn't played any games. But if anyone's basically performance, anyone that could just
pre-season injury, right? We were a bit concerned about that cracked rib early on. A bit of an interrupted run into his pre-season. But look, I've brought him into my side. I'm kind of once again looking for value. I dropped an Andrew Brayshaw. Not that I really saw anything wrong with his game, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute. But he's priced at 104, 105 already. You can get Christian Petrarca priced at 90. Priced at 90. Once again, he's another one of these players that can throw up ceiling scores, and in best 18, that's what we really want. With those 18 players, we want people who can throw up ceiling scores. So yeah, I think once again there's definitely value there. And he's come back into my side.
Yeah. Well, Nathan, I want to get your thoughts as well, because I think Petrarca is the guy that sort of really put his name forward as an option. Is he someone that you're considering putting in your side?
Someone I'm definitely considering, but the fact that I have Oliver and there's so much other value in the midfield, I just think with the interrupted preseason, he's one that I'm a little cautious of, and I definitely think holds a bit more risk than some of the other midfielders that I'd be looking to pick. In saying that, though, everything could change in the next week or two when it comes out that he's looking fantastic, super fit, dominating in training, then I'm more likely to pick him. Right now, though, he's not really someone I'm considering in terms of the 10 names, 15 names that are sort of going in and out of my team. He's not one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he's definitely someone.
I say that now. Now I'll go 120 to start the year.
Yeah, no, he's definitely someone that's risen up in my list. One guy that's gone down, though, for me was Trent Rivers. Tim, we obviously said last week we wanted to see, we said to everyone, just hold on, we'll put him in the teams, but just wait and see what it looks like. And not only was Viney and Petrarca back in, Ed Langdon seemed to be the one that really put that sort of nail into Rivers' role. And Rivers had low game time. He started on the bench more often than not. He was starting at half forward and half back, and it with Melbourne seemed to be throwing a lot of names there. So you had Jack Viney, Christian Petrarca, Ed Langdon, Clayton Oliver as the top four, and that was with Oliver being managed forward as well. Whether that's going to be something we'll see in the season, but then you had Cozzy Pickett who came on the last quarter, who will get CBAs. So, and Langford only got one CBA as well, and only 55% time grants, is something to watch for that. But Tim, is Rivers a bit of a
So look, I think
flag for you.
Yeah, we were pretty attracted last week when we saw him in that first practice match getting heaps of CBAs. We also saw him late last year in a short stretch of games, maybe 4 or 5 games, getting those CBAs. And look, he put up some 120s. So, we know he can score, and I think that's why a lot of us were quick to put him in the team. But, as it's kind of played out in less than a week, it's that role is not as secure as what we thought. So, yeah, I mean, look, once again, priced at 82, he needs to have a decent amount of upside. I mean, when we're looking at people like Roberts and Perryman, looking for probably 15 points worth of upside, but that means he's got to get to the high 90s. And with that uncertainty in that role in that midfield, I think that means most of us are going to fade him. I mean, I even saw him starting forward at one point there as well. I'm not sure where he fits, and he's out for me.
Yeah, I think he's out for me as well. I feel like he is the Liam Baker at Richmond for Melbourne, but the guy that can actually score if he's in the right role. I think he's going to almost plug holes wherever he needs to go. He'll get midfield time, but he could play in defence. He could play on a wing. He could play out forward. I'm off now after seeing all the mix there as well. So Nathan, Geordie, you off of Trent Rivers now as well?
Yeah, he's not in my side currently.
He was in my side. No, he's not.
Yeah. I think that's from all of us as well. Going through the source, Clayton Oliver, he looked fantastic. I just think lock him in. That burst was back. He looked quick as well. Kicked some goals, which was fantastic. So yeah, just for me, Clayton Oliver is a lock in our teams. Going down the list here, Caleb Sarong and Andrew Brayshaw are a bit quieter in this game. Geordie, obviously, we try and not overreact to these premiums and their scoring. Is this just a case of with these two, if you were keen on them, you just put them in and don't worry about what happened today? Or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just looking at Sarong here. It says he had 59% time on grounds on
really?
footy. So that's actually pretty good. 88 points. So with that time on ground. So yeah, I think those guys, and we saw against in the Indigenous All-Stars game as well. Like they were pretty solid. I think, they've got the role. If you're keen on them, I think, they've done no harm not to be out of our side. So I know Brayshaw's been talked about, and, I guess last year had a bit of, wasn't sure on his role, but I haven't actually checked the CBAs, but was Brayshaw one of the main? Yeah.
Clear number one. He had 23 so there was, I'm just having a look. So Gorn had 28. Who was the other ruck? So 2. So there was 30 CBAs. Brayshaw went to 23 of the 30. Next best was Sarong, who obviously was obviously rested a bit, who had 16. Then you had a host of other guys. So it looks like Brayshaw's the number one guy.
Yeah. So that's, I've just found it here. Yeah. 76%. So that's exactly what we want from Brayshaw. We don't want bit of wing or forward time. So that solidifies a role there. So I wouldn't be too worried about that 70. In Supercoach, Brayshaw actually he came up with a 130. So obviously good signs with clearance work and contested stuff on the inside, which is good signs as well.
Yeah, I agree. So I wouldn't be overreacting too much on his score. Tim, obviously you mentioned O'Driscoll before, but Nathan, I want to get your thoughts on O'Driscoll. Had 13 CBAs in this game as well. Hayden Young is missing time to start the season as well. He's that bigger body that is a little bit different to a Sarong and a Brayshaw. He's going to spend a lot of time on the wing, but if he's getting this mix of these CBAs, is he someone for you that you'd be keen to start?
Yeah, I think in terms of looking at O'Driscoll, Sheldrick, and Nevitt, I think there's probably a world where risky you can start with 2 out of the 3, but definitely you're starting 1 of the 3 at an M6 or an M7. And I don't think O'Driscoll did his chances any harm. Obviously, his scoring is going to be up and down, just as the nature of being a wingman, particularly a wingman for Freo. The CBAs were great to see. Obviously, Young's going to come back into that team and maybe push him out, and he's probably maybe even pushed out of the team, you would consider. But it might be a little too late for coaches who don't own him, because he might have gone up 200, 300K for us, which would be the ideal dream. So for me, he's currently in my team, but I'm toying around with that.
Yeah. So Lindsay scored 50, Langford 39. I feel like Langford's just not going to have that midfield role. I think he's still an option to be starting on maybe a bench to start against GWS in that round 1. I think Finn O'Sullivan's probably moved ahead and probably a Levi Ashcroft, but I think we probably still start him. But maybe, well, Tim, do we still start Langford for the job security, or do we start a Boxer and a Camporelli on the bench? Obviously save cash and maybe better roles.
Look, it's going to be hard to. I mean, look, Langford and Lindsay. I mean, they both got pretty decent game time. I don't know if they're going to be starting a sub. I mean, I think that's the thing we've got to look at. I mean, we have lost some of our rookies, but, you know, I mean, even an Ashcroft, he potentially could be a sub. You know, I think, you know, Sullivan might get away from it. But, yeah, look, and I think the other thing that's going to happen in this last week as well is as people are putting their team together, you know, we're trying to fit all the players that we want into our side. There might be people who are dropping down someone like a Harvey Langford or a Xavier Lindsay down to a 230K rookie just to give themselves that extra 100K to go and, you know, I mean, a perfect example, right, is, I mean, I'm looking at it right now. Like it's either a Harvey Langford or a 230K rook and, you know, the difference between a Tim English and a Cherry. So, you know, they're the kind of decisions that we're going to have to make in round one. And yeah, I don't know. I'm going to firmly sit on the fence with this one. It's going to be hard to say, you know, whether those rookies get decent game time. They're not subs. They're going to make a lot of money, and that'll work out to be the best way to go. But you know, if they start getting sub vests and stuff like that, they're going to stall in their cash gen. So yeah, it's these final decisions we're going to make in the lead up to round one.
Yeah, exactly. And final player we'll chat about, Liam Reedy. Just scored the 23 points. Was pretty soundly beaten by Max Gawn, which is no surprise there. But Geordie, is it really worth, if we've got Boyd named, is it really worth paying up for Reedy on the bench, or do you think we're just going the 230K Rook and Reedy? Because I still feel like Freo looked better with Luke Jackson as the number one ruck. But your thoughts?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this. I'm pretty keen on, I've just been listening to Lemon a lot, and I'm pretty keen to try and get 30 green dots this year. So yeah, if Boyd is named, I think that's a smash pick there, 230K, I'll go with that. But I was thinking about paying up for Reedy as R3, because if Boyd isn't there, just to get that cash gen. But, you know, today with the 23 points, that doesn't really fill me with a lot of confidence that he's going to make that. So yeah, I think I'm hopefully Boyd, and that makes our decision. But yeah, it didn't really look good. Obviously, still had high time on ground, and I think he had high CBAs, 50%. So obviously has the role. But I mean, he is coming up against Gawn, so Gawn obviously smacked him. Probably still an option, maybe, but hopefully we can get a decision round one, and we don't have to think about that one, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other thing as well, just to say Reedy, is that we were talking about this with Darcy, but they've got the best ruck run to start the season as well. Like they've got Geelong in round one. Like we could actually have a pretty solid game in round one against De Koning if he's there. Grundy in round two is tough, but then West Coast Bulldogs, Richmond is a pretty good run. Then he comes up against Melbourne in round 6 and Gawn. So I feel like the first 5 weeks could still be good. So I think you make a good point. If Boyd's not named, I think that could still be a play to pay up for him there. We'll do rapid fire because there's just 2 or 3 questions I just wanted to quickly touch on before we finish. But we have had a long pod, so apologies we won't get to a lot of questions tonight. But Andrew Griffith says here, and I'll go to Geordie here, he said, with D1 being a nightmare, do we just pay up for Sheasel as we got a lot of these value mids that we can chuck in and value forwards as well? Thoughts on Sheasel at D1?
Oh, he looked amazing, as Tim said, potentially could be someone that can take the game away from you. I'm just finding it hard at the moment to pay up for Sheasel and Cherry. So I feel like you almost have to make a call on one of those. You know, if you are going like an English, maybe you do pay for Sheasel. I think he's an unreal player, and I think you can definitely have him in as D1. I just would be worried if you do have that, just make sure your team value is spread across and you're not paying up too much. I think, yeah, depending on the rooks as well. But yeah, I'm just at the moment I'm finding it hard to pay up for Cherry and Sheasel, and I've chosen Cherry at the moment, but can't see why you can't have him at D1.
Yeah. Well, Nathan, this sort of goes into it as well. Sean says, are we still keen on Nasai Wanganeen Millera? Is there a world where you could just pay for Sheasel in that D1 spot, or do you still think you won't want to overreact to that round one, that practice game score?
You definitely wouldn't want to overreact, but I absolutely have overreacted and have gone Wanganeen Millera to Sheasel. So I found a way to get 150K, and they've done it. It probably will change. I'm honestly considering just having short at D1 right now and then just going for value in the defensive line and trying to find some cash elsewhere. But it'll be based off my team. But yeah, I definitely am comfortable with getting that extra 150K because I do think Sheasel is 150K worth more than Wanganeen Millera in the next year.
Yeah.
Just because how terrible the Saints are, to be clear.
Yeah, exactly. Final one we'll go here and then we'll wrap up. Tim Ashworth, another super chat. Thank you very much for that, mate. He said, who's everyone's M5, D4, F1? So we'll go rapid fire around the room to finish up. So, Geordie, who have you got at your M5, D4, and F1?
Yep. So M5, I have Hollands at the moment. Was it D4?
Yep.
I've got Freya. I've got Freya actually. Although I did say I had him at D5 before, but I've actually got him and SDK. I made him. Yep, Freya at D4. And F1 is Horn Francis.
Yep. Nathan?
Holland at M5, Perryman at D4, and I declined to answer who my F1 is.
Well, I'm the exact same as Nathan, although I will answer my F1, and that is the Horn bag, Jason Horn Francis.
Yeah. And then for me, M5, I've currently got Dylan Shield sitting there after putting him out that game, but I think that's probably going to be Hollands if I put in an Angus Sheldrick. D4 for me, I've currently got Matt Roberts, so a little bit deeper there, but obviously with Rivers there, I'm going to drop him out, so maybe it will be a Perryman there. And then F1, I've got Jack McRae there, so not paying up for an F1 at the moment. But yeah, that will wrap us up. Apologies we couldn't get to more questions. Hopefully we answered a heap of them because we chatted about a heap of players here, as obviously with all the community series game. But if you do want more questions answered, head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. I'm doing a exclusive Q&A for the Patreons either tonight or tomorrow. So if you sign up there, you can get into that, but also a heap of other bonus content. And then there's also a cash league for the Patreons there where the winner will get a minimum of $200 to $300. But the more people that enter, the bigger that prize will be, and potentially second and third. So make sure you guys head on over there to our Patreon. Links at the very description of the podcast and the video. So make sure you guys go and sign up there. But thank you, Geordie and Nathan, for jumping on. Geordie, mate, thanks for making your debut on the Fantasy Fanatics. You're great. I'm sure we'll hear from you and get you on throughout the season, mate. But where can people find you across the socials, and what can people be expecting from you for the remainder of the preseason and into the season proper?
Yeah, so you just find me Jordan D'Sena on Twitter. And yeah, like I'm a big Port fan. I live close to the Oval, so I try and get down to training as much as I can. So I've been trying to tweet some stuff during the season on, some insights on Port. So probably a bit of that on the page, as well as, I love my Super Coach as well. So I'll be posting a bit of Super Coach stuff if you do play that as well. So thanks for having me as well.
Beautiful. Thanks, mate. Thanks for jumping on. And as I said, we'll get you back on. Nathan, mate, thank you very much for jumping on. Good to have you back in Australia, and good to jump on with us, mate. Where can the people find you across the socials, and where can people find the Hatchat podcast?
Yeah, you can find me and lifting up the other boys of the Hatchat podcast and making it somewhat respectable and enjoyable to listen to. You can find me, Geordie, and Guesty actually in the best league of the Hatchat leagues, League 5. Obviously a little reunion that we've got going on here.
Right,
so fantastic work. And on the socials, you can find me at Obermullet.
Yeah, I can hear Jake saying with a T right there.
I'm not used to not hearing it without that immediately after. So I'm glad you said.
That's what I thought I'd chuck it in there. Sorry, Jake, don't give me a copyright claim or anything like that. Wait, so all you in League 5, all three of you?
Yeah,
I'm League 6.
Really popular league.
Yeah, I'm in League. I honestly thought I was in League 5 this year. I was getting excited because I thought, Nathan's commissioner, but I was in League 6. Unfortunate. So hopefully I'll see you guys next year. Tim, mate, where can people?
League 5 next year.
Tim, where can people find you across socials, and also just last plug for the Patreon, the entry into the Content Creators Cup?
Yeah, so you can find me anywhere on socials at Tim Guest AU. And if you want to your chance to be in the Content Creators Cup with 19 other content creators, then get to infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy.
Beautiful. Head over to that. You can find me at BAILSDT. You can find us at AFL Fantasy Fans. Make sure to join our Facebook group, AFL Fantasy Fanatics. 3 entry questions, answer those, and you can get. And obviously you'll get in the group. And then obviously, as I said, the Patreon. If you do enjoy it on YouTube, make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plenty of good and exciting content. Well, I hope it's good and exciting content for you guys throughout the whole season. And if you're listening back to the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. It takes 2 seconds and is a big help for us. So that would be very much appreciated. But we're back on Tuesday night. We've got a Q&A. We got Drew Jones jumping on with us for a Q&A. So we're excited to chat to him a bit about fantasy and a few things there. So make sure you guys tune into that on Tuesday night. If not, we'll obviously see you on Sunday night reviewing opening round. So thanks, everyone. Have a good week. And we'll catch you guys next Sunday. See you, everyone.
See ya. Come on, Nathan, do it.
Bye. I was like, do I get